he is not the end all be all of your team fight. If the Mars is in that position 3 role and the silencer hits him up, then you have an issue. If it's a 4 or a 5 and you get silenced, that's still a bummer, but you're going to have other tools to work with. The Mars can now be supplementary instead of being responsible for being the guy to make your initiation. So, an interesting pivot from the Hokori side. Meanwhile, Infamous are going to pick themselves up the Sand King with that 4th selection. So, we were talking about heroes with initiating power. The Sand King certainly fits the mold there, and you've got yourself, presumably, I think the Sand King Mirana 3-4 duo in the lane, so the double stun is something that Hokori may want to be a little bit more wary of and ready for in the laning stage.
Yeah, it's simple. It's easy to execute. It's something that is guaranteed going to get something out of the game, as well as Sand King just playing really well versus Boars. It's really easy for you to just Burrow Strike, Sandstorm, like right click one once, get the Caustic Finale. Suddenly you're Beastmaster without Boars, and Beastmaster without Boars is not very good. I think when the Tidehunter is already taken out as early as it was in this draft, you are scrambling for heroes. Of course, Tide would have been the best hero to slot in there for Infamous, but I think if we're not seeing the Tide first phase, it'd be very rare to get it all the way at the end of second. So Sand King, I think it's kind of a something slotting in for a better hero that's already been taken away, but it will definitely give at least something to stand in front of these very squishy supports. It's going to be interesting seeing how this Mars is actually going to be able to do, though, because he is most likely going to be put in that POTS 5 position. Or I guess you could put him 4 as well, but most likely going to see Gardic on the Mars. It feels like a Gardic hero. He likes his melee 5s. And then who is Ardio going to want to play in that same situation? But Infamous are on the point. Again, taking out this Void. I think Ardio always gets his Void taken out when his hero hasn't been first phased and he's been playing the Luna. If people are really scared of his Void for a very good reason, it would make it really simple for Hokori to play, because I think they're missing one more big spell to really kind of level out their team fight and even take the advantage over Infamous, whereas right now it really is kind of dead even. Even the Monkey King is more of a playmaker than a lot of other carries.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's still some options left in the pool. The Luna's been taken away. Weaver, Spectre, Faceless Void all banned out as well, but, well, we've seen teams ban out the TB trying to go against RDO. We saw the play with Angel on the Morphling earlier. I don't really know if that's something that you want to do too heavily in this matchup, but still plenty of heroes that RDO is going to be able to make use of. I'm just not sure about... I suppose comfort would be the word here, right? Obviously, he knows how to play pretty much anyone under the sun, but how comfortable will they be putting RDO on some of these other options? And well, what else do Infamous look to remove here? They do still have one more ban. We have, excuse me, yet to see really too many options. It feels like we've been sort of hovering in around the same like 3 to 5 carries to this point in the event, but Infamous have a bit of a decision to make, and honestly, I think they need to take into account, yeah, that they have some of those squishier heroes on the back line. The Gyrocopter taken away, someone that could really just get right up in their faces and take them down, maybe not instantly, but pretty damn quickly.
Yeah, and really, the most hilarious hero I think they could pick up right now is they just pick like the safe lane Tiny. That would be hilarious. You get last phase Tiny
Oh.
now. Welcome to the new patch. But I feel like, yeah, they need something that's going to match up well versus the Monkey King. RDO he's the kind of man who does like to play heroes like the Bloodseeker, like some other more South American-esque heroes. Of course, you want to see him on a Flash Farmer, I think, because you do have that Invoker. You want him on your 1v9er. I don't think they can pick Medusa, though. That seems like a far cry. But they'll pick
Okay.
Medusa.
Well,
Well, that's your 1v9 Alacrity. I do not care. I've got Beastmaster, Inner Beast. It's a hero. Am I confident? I'm not as confident. It's just that you have so many tools, right? You're playing a very immobile ranged safe laner versus both Mirana and Sand King. If the Monkey King ring gets down underneath you, it should be very difficult for you to actually make anything happen here. Of course, you have the Hawk scouting out, you've got the power shot. Maybe it's a little bit harder for this Monkey King to traverse, but I am a little bit concerned. I think now on the Infamous side, they need to get something that's going to allow them to breach that high ground a little bit simpler. I think that it's great what they've got so far. They've got a lot of damage, but
whoa.
okay, PL. Let's see. Yeah, Alone Monkey King.
Okay.
Okay. It's a lot different, but I mean, Lumiere PL, it's a counter versus the Medusa, right? And that is something that's actually going to allow you to get on top of the high ground. But okay, both these teams took these in very different directions.
But now I just RDO cannot ever afford really to be jumped on, right? Like you said before, Sand King's going to hit you. Mirana's got the follow-up arrow. The Monkey King can then get you directly in the middle of a Wukong's command, and now all of that is still going to happen. You'll also have Lumiere hitting you with a PL that presumably will have that mana burn. So RDO, you've picked this Medusa great, but this Medusa can't really be the frontliner. You want her to be the 1v9 hero. It's just, I feel like if you try to do that, Infamous are so well prepared to burn through her.
Yeah, I think the bigger thing is that Hokori, they need to play a really clean game. If they let this one get too out of control, if Lumiere is able to just idly sit by and farm, then this game can very easily spiral because even to the Medusa counterpick, no one plays well versus illusions on the Hokori side. Everyone is incredibly dependent on each other to get these illusions off of one another, and if the fights drag on too long, it is going to feel like there's no place for them to play.
Yeah, I think what the best sort of AoE you have is maybe the Invoker can hit up a cluster of illusions with the sort of Tornado Meteor combo, something along those lines. But if you're using any part of that combo to deal with the illusions of the Phantom Lancer, then you've already put yourself at a bit of a disadvantage. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. At least on paper, Infamous have drafted themselves into a strong position, but as we always say, the execution sort of looms large here. We'll have to see how efficiently Infamous can get onto the Medusa and how well Hokori are going to be able to cover for RDO here as they continue looking for their first win of the group stage here. It has been losses all the way through for them through their first 3 games, but, well, one last match to end the day. Let's see if they can pull it out or if Infamous are going to be able to take it to them as alone. Okay. Well, okay, so now we're all just, yeah, we're just killing off all the wards. Obs
Yeah,
was not actually denied, though. They'll leave it for now, so I wonder if that's actually gonna work. I mean, the ward, while it was up there, saw that the Monkey King was hitting it, so if you're Hokori, maybe you assume that he actually did fully deny it and that that vision isn't there when it actually is. So I don't know if that's gonna matter across the first 5 to 6 minutes, but you never know. Could set up for some sort of early rotation.
yeah, and it's pretty hilarious seeing all of the high ground vision getting sort of bought up here by the Infamous side. They really are going to know absolutely everything that Gardock's going to try here. Unfortunately, whenever you are playing this melee 5, you are not the one that's going to be stacking. A lot of that responsibility is going to be falling over to the Wind, and that's where if you're not able to defend these stacks, if you aren't able to, again, play a really clean game of Dota, I think Hokori, they've got a really easy path to victory if they get their insane power spike around the Medusa around maybe 21, 22 minutes, where you suddenly have way more damage, you have maybe Scotty Manta completed, and then you're suddenly unable to get pushed off of those towers, then they can win. The problem is Infamous are going to try and delay and buy time and do everything they can to make it as hard of a game for them to follow that plan out.
Sacred starting things off with the Sandstorm. Of course, RDO should be able to sort of stay out of it. It's not the longest range in the game, but long enough to keep her safe as Gardic. Don't know if that was intentional or not, but he steps in front of the arrow, so that's going to keep that range creep alive, and that is something that the Mirana wants so often. Just snipe out that range creep, sort of keep that pressure onto the Medusa, and I mean, if you can, maybe, yeah, just push her back, get her under the tower, try and mess with that efficiency a little bit across the first few minutes, and really give Sacred a safer time, if at all possible.
Yeah, and Arctic did a good job investing in these sentries, trying to block up that large camp so that the Mirana doesn't just get to straight up farm, and Gardic is doing a good job of phase tanking a lot of these, really making them work for these range creeps, but you gotta hit the denies, otherwise you are just eating a lot of damage that you're not really going to be able to move over towards your carry. If RDO takes too much, then this lane does start to get much, much more difficult, and We'll have to see how Michael decides to play going forward, because you do have that large camp now. You are able to just stop sapping XP. You're just able to farm way more.
All right, at this point, that's 3 in a row now. It is intentional. Gardic is just laying himself out in front of it to prevent the range creep from being taken down. And here's the thing. That is a pretty solid play at this point. But if he takes too many of those hits, this Sand King is eventually going to have a point in the Burrow Strike. He is holding a skill point at the moment. So if you're Gardic, you want to try and maintain some degree of equilibrium for your Medusa, but you do need to keep an eye on your own HP because, again, that double stun combo, we talked about it in the drafts. Gardic may not be crazy valuable, but that would still be a first blood play, and that would get Sacred into, again, another sort of stronger position here, laning directly against that Medusa.
Yeah, and they're out. Gardic just got his courier. They just got a new set of regen, but the next set is going to be incredibly important. I think as long as Gardic is not forced to sap too much XP from the Medusa, Artio is going to be happy. But again, you're a very level-based safe laner here, and unfortunately Gardic doesn't get to block that large camp, but that's where the strength of the Mirana really lies. You're just kind of able to out-Dota your opponents. You just have way more resources to work with. Nice pull from Gardic, though. Nifty.
He did manage to take that away. Yeah. Not really sure, or wasn't really sure he was going to be able to get it, but he does pull that off. Now, Sacred's making his way over. He's actually holding 2 skill points at this point, so there we go. One in the Burrow, another in the Sandstorm. So 1-2 build for him. Meanwhile, over on the other side of the map, Vitaly able to push it onto A. He and Elmisho make the move. Shackle Shot connects, and Lumiere, well, it's a PL. Defensive capability, not really his forte at the moment. Can't defend his teammate. His first blood goes Hokori's way. So early on in this lane, it was the Silencer being so obnoxious with the multiple points up in the Arcane Curse, and that's not going to go away. The second the Silencer's back in the lane, he is going to continue to try and hit him up with that, but at least they're able to strike first, take him down, and that's going to be the name of the game for the Silencer. Maybe you can't deny his damage, but this is always going to be a squishy hero and a potential kill for those Hokori heroes. Is A... I think he's actually going to kill the bird. Okay. Kills the bird with DOT, and that's always an interesting one, and trying to take eyes away from Vitaly early.
Yeah, and we're really just waiting for Lumiere. Once he hits level 5, then there's enough points in Phantom Rush to really threaten the Boars every single time, and then you can't really force out this PL. And that's where, again, you got to play a tight game. You have to try and slow down this PL as much as you can. Lumiere's already got the Yasha queued up, which is... even talking about how he wants to play that more farm-oriented style. He wants to look towards those bigger items. And we'll have to see, because there's definitely some pressure that can come out to him, especially with how fast Vitaly is getting his Helm of the Dominator up. There's a lot of pressure on this PL.
Elmisho running ahead, trying to wait for the Shackle. Gets it between the PL and his Illusion, and Lumiere...
So sick.
That's just... That is impressive. Elmisho with all the patience in the world, the tip at the end there as well, and... Yeah, just wait until your opponent creates the second target for the Shackle, and that is going to get them their second kill. That is a just massive play, especially, as you mentioned, Vitaly, he's getting pretty close to building up those first sort of major items. So not only do you get a little bit more money to the Beastmaster, you are now slowing Lumiere up just that little bit more with that early death, and every little bit of pressure you can put on him is potentially going to matter later on down the line.
Yep, it's all a timing thing. If you have just another 2 or 3 minutes where the PL is unable to farm safely, get those levels, it was also just really nicely timed. They knew that A was going to go for the small camp pull, so they simply run at the carry. Not a mistake necessarily from A, but just a lot of good heads-up plays coming in from Hokori. And well, 6-minute runes, everyone's rotating.
Gardic? They're thinking about chasing him. The Boundless Strike is there into the arrow, follow-up into the Starstorm. Gardic dropped low. One more hit, though, will finish him off. That Rebuke, it gets alone out of attack range, but not Michael on the ranged hero. So Infamous are able to find their first kill of the game, and now... Well, what goes on here mid? The mid laner for that Hokori side has sort of rotated away. So Monkey King knows that something is up there, but he's not going to be able to sort of relay that information in time before Analog even arrives. Vitaly and Elmisho, they just go in. Lumiere is alone. That Silencer is a little bit, or more than a little bit, too far out of the lane this time, and they're able to punish the PL again.
It's a little bit obvious that Analog is missing, though. There's a full wave hitting the tower, and Gardic's taking XP, so they should know that something's up here, but I'm interested to see where Lumiere actually decides to TP, and yeah, he's gonna go mid. He can no longer be bottom. He knows the threat that is underneath him right now, and they're really doing a really good job of persecuting this PL. And now the bottom tier 1 tower is almost just gonna be forfeit at this point. He's just way too strong in the Beastmaster.
Yeah, and he's got Analog here to back him up with some extra damage. This is, well, not quite free. It's still going to take them time to actually burn through it, but nobody's coming here to contest him. So that tier 1 will be taken. Meanwhile, as you said, the Mars continuing to try and soak up a little bit of XP. And once he hits 6, this is going to turn into a much more interesting game in terms of what Gardic can do aggressively. We were talking about the fact that with him shifted into a support position, you don't have to be quite as concerned with the silencer maybe countering him out, but you still want him to have that capability, as RDO actually picked off in the top lane. Sacred, Michael, and Alone all push in for the kill. Analog was there, but not able to defend his teammate. He does throw out a tornado before backing away, but he's still sort of being tracked. Michael is right on top of him, or would have been had he kept going, but he will stop to take some of those stacked camps, while his teammate is actually not going to go for the tower. Thought Sacred would continue to push forward, but it is a Sand King. He doesn't really do too good of a job taking towers down, so they're going to get some damage in onto it, but I don't think they can really trade out that tier 1 right now.
Yeah, and really the biggest question for Hokori right now is how efficiently do they use the space? As soon as they push in bottom, that's where Beastmaster is going to reside. And then what does RDO do? Is he going to live in his triangle forever? Is he going to take over the mid lane? That forces Analog somewhere else. There are some questions now of how do they use the space that they've been able to get through their hard work in the bottom lane. And the collapse on mid is definitely here, but they still have to be so careful. Especially because Sacred, he's got Vanguard. He is going to be as obnoxious as he possibly can on the Sand King, and they might just need to go for different objectives, but they're really brute forcing it.
Yeah, they want the tower, and they almost sort of know it's only Sacred there as, oh, Alone? Okay, he's got the haste. He's going to be able to clear out, but that's an interesting distraction from the Monkey King. There's not really much of a play he can make, but with that attention split from Hokori, well, they can't really put any further pressure on the tower, and now Sacred, before he was alone, so Hokori didn't feel too sort of bothered going in after him, but now he's got the backup. They're going to jump in onto Vitali. Burrow Strike will connect. Tornado really doesn't hit onto much of anything. The EMP is going to connect, though, but by this point, yeah, Vitali is still not getting out. Alone jumps in with the Primal Spring to find the kill. Shackle technically connects, but by that point, really not going to matter much. So the Monkey King creates the initial distraction, doubles back all the way around, and then joins the defense, gets the kill onto Vitali, and not only do they not lose any tower, they don't lose any heroes either.
Yeah, and that's where it starts to become a little bit problematic, because during that entire time, guess who goes top? It's going to be your PL getting all of the recovery time he could possibly want. And that's also where it's way easier to shut down a Medusa. It's much harder to find and track down a PL with as little lockdown as really you have at this stage of the game. And that's why last pick PL is obnoxious as it is. It just feels like in certain lineups.
TP canceled, arrow connects. He does Primal Spring into the EMP, but I don't think that matters. They just need the damage here. They even pop the dust to make sure there's not going to be any funny business there, and they will find the kill. Analog taken down. Michael did get hit by a shackle, and the tower shots drop him low, but he's going to be able to make his escape, and over in the middle lane, okay, Sacred and A jumping onto Vitali, who kind of stuck around there. I think he was trying to maybe keep the pressure on the tier 1 tower, but his backup is completely gone, so Hokori, they lose 2 heroes. Lumiere, meanwhile, cleans up that tier 1 top, and well, all of a sudden, momentum really looking like it's starting to stack up for that infamous side. A 2K net worth lead at the 11-minute mark, and well, if they can continue maybe pushing for some of these objectives, group up for the tier 1 mid, then they really do have a chance to maybe not put the stranglehold on Hokori, but definitely make RDO a little bit more concerned in terms of his farming opportunities moving forward.
And they just want this mid tower so bad. El Misho is just walking over here across the enemy high ground trying to get into a position where they can actually make something happen, but the problem is the easiest way for them to cross the river is having a Blink Dagger on Gardic, but there's just no chance that is going to happen anytime soon, and unfortunately, that's where this tight game of Dota, where Hokori just steamroll objectives with the Beastmaster, force their opponents around the map, and then get farm on Ardio, is becoming more and more difficult to imagine as I just see Lumiere's net worth continue to increase and continuing to not see any heroes in his lane because that's all that Hokori can do. They have to ignore the PL to try and get everyone else in a worse way, but unfortunately for them, again, Infamous aren't biting. It's a very similar situation to Four Zoomers where they're not giving their opponents the mistake that they want all alone. Well,
that is something. Just dashes his way around
another
the
haste
arena.
Ardio's been here before.
I don't think he can actually get this kill, though, but says hi to Ardio, burns through his mana shield, and then walks away. That's got to be a little tilting if you're the Medusa. Meanwhile, that is a Blink Dagger up for Sacred. So, ET, you mentioned this earlier on with that previous push, the fact that this Vanguard had been such a big pickup for him. I mean, it basically transformed your Sand King into exactly what the Tidehunter does. He just sat in front of the tower, dropped the Sandstorm. If you come in here, you're going to take damage. I can Burrow Strike you up. If you try to hit me, I've got enough damage reduction to win. And, I mean, now they've lost it. They can't just pick it back up where they left it with Vitaly in this position before. Sure, you know, you got the Dom Helm at a good time. You were pushing for some objectives, but now anywhere you go, Sacred's just going to be there to sort of check the move. So at this point, what is the response? Do they just sit back and let RDO farm? Because the Medusa is still coming along at a decent rate, but are you okay with the rest of your lineup really not doing that much in terms of active play?
Yeah, it's something you can't be happy with. We haven't even seen Aurora yet, I don't think, out from Vitaly. We need to see, again, the aggression coming, but look at their opponents. They're smoking with Secret Swing, and they see Analog. Well,
Burrow into Arrow, into Last Word. Analog really didn't get much of a chance to play there, as he'll be taken down, and now Infamous, they see an opportunity to push for the Tier 1 mid. The Glyph is going to sort of force them back initially, and now RDO, he's pushing his way forward as well, so not really sure if this is something Infamous want. You see Vitaly and Almisho sort of coming up from the other side of the river, and actually they're going to go for this tower. There is no Glyph on Infamous, but Sacred jumping in. There's going to be the Burrow Strike. He's channeling out that ult. The Epicenter is going to come through. Vitaly's taking a lot of damage. The Roar does come through, but Vitaly will still die, but now RDO's in. They've got the Arena. They've got the Stone Gaze. They're trying for the kill. Alone does get hit up by the, by the Sunstrike, but it's not enough damage. Gardic will be the one to fall. RDO is now running for his life. He's going to look for the TP away. He does at least manage to get himself out. Sacred did not have the Burrow Strike up for another second or two, so the Medusa will make her escape. Almisho, not as fortunate. Alone catches out that Wind Ranger. That is going to be 3 kills over to the Infamous side, and, I mean, the Tier 1 tower went down, so they did finally get that, but price tag is a little bit too much for Hokori to bear right now.
yeah, and they get to make that play because, again, Infamous are just so good at figuring out where their opponents are playing in. Oh, Analog.
Ooh, got him again. The Global? Okay, I mean, better safe than sorry, right? Analog could have tried for some sort of play there. Instead, they shut him down. They'll take him out, and I suppose that Global also prevents anyone on the side of Hokori from really pushing in to immediately help. You saw Almisho and Gardic were close, but with the silence going down, their presence really wouldn't have mattered, so they're forced to sort of delay that push in. They will lose their mid laner. They will not lose their Tier 1 tower mid itself, though. That is still hanging on with 117 HP, but with the way Infamous have been sort of confidently pushing their way forward, I doubt it's going to last much longer than that. You see the creep wave already pushing up, but maybe Almisho can get a deny here? Nope. Siege creep sort of ruins that plan, so tower will be taken down, and oh my goodness, Infamous. The timing is just so well played for them. The second that tower falls, they smoke up on 3, they'll make their way top. They've already got Lumiere here to maybe act as a little bit of a bait, and Analog got to be so careful. He's been picked off 2 or 3 times in a row now, and he's walking directly into this one.
Well.
Oh. Nope. Okay. They had the dust. Not going to let him get away with that one. So, what was that? 4 deaths now? Yeah. 0-4 for that Invoker. And well, in the draft, I was sort of talking about something we see from a lot of Invoker players where those early rotations don't quite work out for them. This is a bit of a different situation. It's not that the rotations aren't working. It's that he's not getting the chance to make them in the first place. He's just getting harassed and assaulted at every opportunity. And speaking of which, El Misho going to get hit up by the arrow. Alone started it with the Boundless, and that's just going to be another pick-off here. They are not slowing down in the slightest.
Yeah, and then as soon as they took away that mid tower, then Sacred plants himself now bottom where he's going to kill everything. He has a Crimson Guard. I haven't seen a Crimson Guard in years, but
Oh, boy. Did get that
that's
cost
how
reduction.
confident.
So.
It's so confident.
That was a weird one. Cost reduction, like, I mean, I was going to say nobody really buys this. Sacred obviously now has, but it was a little bit strange. But hey, you know what? I'm all for it. Always like to see more and more items getting picked back up again, and now Sacred, well, he wants in for the fight. That's a well-placed sentry, though, by El Misho. Without that, Sacred just had a free path in for the initiation, so at least they're able to avoid that one, but still 12-3 in terms of that kill count, so they are really on the defensive, on the back foot, whatever sort of cliche phrase you want to sort of call forwards. The fact remains, if you're Hokori, your game plan has now turned into keep RDO safe and hope that that is somehow enough to win the game.
Yeah, they really, again, they have to play around the fact that this PL doesn't exist in their game just yet. They need to continuously hope that there isn't a bad situation. Unfortunately,
Double stun
Sacred just
combo
keeps
out
finding it.
again. DOT from the Sandstorm is enough. The global, that's a well-timed one as well. Precisely when Gardic tried to push in for the arena, and that arena does go down. But no rebuke, no spear to follow it up. RDO does not want anything to do with that as he immediately backs away, and, well, on the one hand, sure, Global Silence is down. It's a pretty massive cooldown, but you just broke up that counter initiation in its entirety, and in the meantime, Alone, he's kind of keeping an eye on mid. The second he sees Analog, though, he immediately jumps away. So the Monkey King is playing insanely well right now, 5-0-5, but not exactly a 1v2 scenario there into Medusa and Invoker.
Yeah, he's just biding his time. I think the only way they could lose a lot of their advantage is if Sacred and Alone just randomly decide to get picked off a bunch of times in a row, but it feels like they're getting exactly what they need. And even though the Deso is definitely greedier than we've seen a lot of Monkey Kings go for, like today we see everyone go for the BKB after the Echo Saber, it's just going to allow them to keep making these plays. It's really difficult to talk about Hokori. They've got the Helm of the Overlord finally completed up on the Beastmaster, and we are going to see the Butterfly being built up by RDO, but that is their timing. If they do not win with Butterfly, Sanjin, Yasha, Medusa, Alacrity, you probably are not going to be in a very good position to really win the game past that point. Lumiere almost has a heart after his really any other item. If he's able to get a Scotty after the heart, then this game becomes almost impossible for the cores on Hokori to play. They really can't take a fight anymore after that point, and they're doing a good job of taking this bottom tier 2 tower. I can only imagine that Infamous are trying to kind of trade it and give it up, but Infamous don't really care about bottom right now because they know that worst case scenario, you go up high ground, we send the PL down there, and then PL farms it. It's just always an avenue for Lumiere to play in.
And, okay. Gonna pop the glyph there as well to try and slow it down a little bit, but again, and nobody's TPing down here to defend it. It's just a means of slowing their opponents, and while their opponents were slowed down, well, you do have Infamous pushing for a tier 2 tower of their own over on the other side of the map, so they're content to turn that into just a straight-up trade, and now the question is, if you're Hokori, what do you do? Ardio's sticking around a little while longer, trying to take advantage of what farming opportunities he has here, but do you take a fight? Do you feel confident to do that now? Do you have the Roar at your disposal? Gardic's Arena's back up, but at this point, if you're Hokori, it just feels like you cannot take a fight unless the Medusa's involved, because you need that damage, and if you're RDO, do you really want to fight? You have so much space to farm right now. It's not quite coming at a rate faster than the PL, which they have no way of knowing definitively at this point. They don't have the same numbers we do, but do you take the chance? Because if the Medusa now pushes in to fight, and that's a fight that you lose, you're even further behind than you already are. So do you sit here and let the Medusa farm and say we're content with being only this far behind, or do you take the risk and try to push for something more? Right now, RDO, well, leaning towards the more farming-oriented route, as he sort of wants to do.
Yeah, it's really it's an awkward position to be in because Infamous, they're still making these plays every single time they have it. I think they want the peel to be synced up with Artio right now. They see the Medusa walking towards the low ground here, but she's stunned for so long. Okay, whiffed.
Meanwhile,
Michael dropped the
Elmisho,
ball.
he kept the PL distracted. Popped to the wind run, so wasn't taking any hits from the right clicks, blinked away and TP'd home, so that means one of the primary damage dealers for Infamous wasn't there for the attempt onto RDO, which helps the Medusa get away as well. So they are biding their time, and incrementally speaking, they are getting stronger. That is something that always has to be stressed here. RDO may not be farming as well as the PL, but he is still growing on this hero. It's just a matter of whether that's going to be enough moving forward. As Sacred jumping in onto Elmisho. This time, I don't think the Wind Ranger is going to be able to get away, but the Yules, well, the Yules was actually used, yeah, offensively there from Infamous, but either way, they will find the kill. Elmisho gets taken down, dead for 30, and that's the cue for the other heroes here to sort of maybe take a step or two back. But as they back off, Infamous are going to push in, looking for that first Roche of the game.
Yeah, and that's where the Deso just allows you to actually make the attempt at the pit, and it's going to be very well scouted out, but will Gardic, without a Blink Dagger, without really any good way to get in there, they've got the Stone Gaze in maybe another 15 seconds, and it's not the fastest Roche, but here we go. They've got to be really patient.
Gardic, Tumbler's Toy. Okay, that gets him in. Arena drop down, but there's the global silence into the epicenter. Even an arrow from long range onto RDO. It's done. Fight's over. The absolute second that RDO gets stunned up there, it's just done. And Infamous, I don't know if they actually saw that play coming. They didn't have the vision down, but they were anticipating that maneuver. And you had the heroes nearby. You had the Sand King laying in wait for the blink into the epi. You had Michael sort of up on this high ground waiting for that arrow. So Hokori unknowingly walked directly into the trap, and now Infamous even further ahead. They take Roshan, they get the Aegis into the Monkey King's hands, and Lumiere at this point is no longer farming. He is pushing into a much more active role, going straight down the middle lane.
Yep, he's completely objective focused, and there's nothing to defend against this. And that's where really the only hope right now is that Analog is going to Alacrity your Medusa, and you're going to hope for the best. He went for the comeback Midas. He's still so low level. Elmisho's got more levels than him just because he's been playing around in this bottom lane for such a long time. And really, that was the biggest concern I had in this lineup, was how were you going to delegate the farm? Who was going to be the one to have a bad game? And unfortunately, Analog drew the short stick, and okay, Alone.
They missed the arrow. And Alone, he's really just not taking much damage here. Analog is doing his best with that magic damage combo, and I think eventually they should be able to get him. Alone can't get the Jingu because Elmisho with the Wind Run isn't taking the hits, evading all of it. So they burned through the Aegis, and now Analog is going to just TP away. Initially, that looked like a pretty rough play for them, but they're able to make something happen, and Elmisho at this stage, okay, I was going to say maybe he can get himself out of there, but it looks like he is going to get run down. Meanwhile, further to the north, in that east side jungle, Vitali got caught out as well. Lumiere is able to find that kill. So the good news, you burn the Aegis, and you get your core heroes, or one of your core heroes away. The bad news, you did still have to sacrifice two.
Yeah, and really, I think that all burns down because Sacred doesn't want to give away his positioning in the enemy triangle. He wants to keep playing on this ward, and they do get a nice Beastmaster kill because of that, but still, there's no reason for Infamous to back out of the enemy territory at all anymore. Lumiere is probably going to finish up his Scotty, buying it from the enemy base, and really, they're trading their objectives right now for minutes to try and finish a few more of these items, like the Crystallis on RDO, maybe, again, just something for Gardic. It's really hard because they're playing with so little right now. It does feel like they don't really have anything to work with in the tank. They really are kind of flowing on empty right now.
It's just no one other than the Medusa really seems to be generating much for themselves in terms of farm, in terms of kill opportunities. As Gardic, okay, Arena down, Spear out, good stun there, but it's not going to matter. Sacred hits him up with the Burrow Strike. That Tornado, though, does come through, connecting onto two. Elmisho comes in with the power shot into the Focus Fire, but A is going to drop down the Global Silence, trying to break up this fight, doing a decent job of it now, but he's actually just sort of put himself into the line of fire, but that buys time for Sacred. Back in with the Epicenter, they get the Wukong's command out as well. Analog will die, Vitali gets clipped by the Boundless Strike, so he will fall. RDO now alone in the engagement. and he will be taken
Yep,
down, and that's
called
it.
it.
The GG called. Infamous just destroy their opponents, really. 23-3. That's just an absolute dismantling.
Yeah, and of course, if you're Hokori, you can't beat yourself up too much. You got last pick PL'd. It's second pick. You're not always going to have the pick priority whenever you're in these best of twos, especially. It's unfortunate with how game one goes, but game two, really Infamous showed that they were, by and large, the better team. I think the path for Hokori to win this game is you really just needed to make them choose somewhere to defend with Sacred. If they strike just a little bit sooner, force the Sand King to only defend one of their towers and force them into a mistake, something like that, I just feel like they weren't able to get that creep pressure going for them, even though they already have the Beastmaster. And then just one or two fights where they stick around the mid lane too long, while Lumiere gets a complete recovery top after his two pretty ugly deaths spawn him. It's just an unfortunate circumstance. And then really, Lumiere had the easiest game of Dota, I think, of his life. He really didn't need to do anything until his teammates told him to go Roche. It really feels like Hokori just didn't have the strategy to really win this one. I think Infamous were just way too solid.
Yeah, I mean, no other way to describe it for Lumiere other than PvE. Like, Hokori basically didn't exist in Lumiere's mindset. He was just playing a farming simulator. Eventually, yeah, they call him out, say, hey, we're going for Roche now. We're pushing objectives now. And he's like, okay, that's what we're doing. It really just did not seem like Hokori had anything left to go with. They got those two nice kills, and then everything just completely shuts down. They get nothing from any other member of the line. If you actually look here, kill count wise, Hokori, 0 kills. For everyone other than Vitali, El Misho got 3 assists, but that's it. There's just there's no initiation, there's no aggression, there's no sort of dynamic playmaking from this lineup in a situation where theoretically they should have had most of those things. It's just their own hesitation combined with Infamous just shutting them down at every potential turn that they just kind of shut down entirely.
Yeah, and we didn't get to look at the mid lane too much, but again, that's a lane that I think Analog is meant to draw. And then we saw him get on the active, trying to make rotations, towards the bottom lane. Unfortunately, bottom lane was handled. Vitali had won his lane convincingly. Unfortunately, there was just no other recourse. Whenever everything collided on mid, I think Sacred just got too much of a lead out of the top lane, and it's something that you can't even really prepare for. Sacred just had a simple time. He had a Vanguard and he played Sand King. No, nothing really special happened. It was just kind of the collapse, and then I think Hokori getting a little bit too ahead of themselves. I think Vitali's really first two deaths is really what made the game really hard for them, because he was the guy that had the net worth, had the farm, had the bottom lane, had the success. They just weren't able to really grasp onto that and turn it into a snowball where everyone else could make plays. So it's unfortunate, but Corey, again, I mean, you go 0-4 in the day. You can't feel too bad about yourself. You got a lot more Dota to play, but it's got to hurt just a bit.
Yeah, and especially got to be rough for them considering those two losses come against their direct regional rivals, two of those other South American teams in the field. So, not going to feel good for Hokori, but you know what? It's day one, right? Sometimes bad things happen. Sometimes you go 0-4 as Hokori. Sometimes you stay muted in Discord when you do the entire intro and somebody has to tell you that. Things happen, but you gotta move on. And if you're Hokori, still plenty of Dota left. And to be honest, with 9 teams in the field for this event, only one team gets eliminated in the group stage. I am sorry to sort of say that right now because it does lower the stakes a little bit, but Hokori are not going to need presumably all that much to sort of stay in the mix. So we'll see if they can step things up moving forward. I don't believe they play tomorrow. I think they've got a little bit of a break there, so we're not going to be tossing them directly back into the fire, but they're going to have 6 more series to try and make up some ground. In the meantime, Infamous, with that 2-0 sweep, move into that tie for first place. They're tied with Thunder Predator and 4 Zoomers, all 3 teams having 2-0 records. So congratulations to them, commiserations to Hokori, but again, we'll be seeing more of them throughout this event, and hopefully seeing them in maybe a better light and stronger performances in general.
Oh, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? At the end of the day, Hokori could go winless, pull the TI Thunder Predator route. Hopefully they don't. You never want to see a team go winless. That's just kind of, it's just kind of sad for the players, for the people watching. It hurts. But Hokori not in danger of that anytime soon. Sure, they've lost their first 4 games, but they've got plenty more to work with. And, plenty more coming up, but not today. We are done with the schedule for today. First 3 best of 2s in the books. So we are going to be saying goodbye and shutting things down here in just a couple of minutes. We have 3 more best of 2s tomorrow afternoon. We're going to be getting started at the same time, 3 p.m. Pacific. Translate that into your own time zones yourself, because I'm too lazy to do it. But we will be having more Dota for you as we move into day 2 of the group stage. But with that, we are going to be sort of hopping out of here. ET, any closing thoughts here on day 1?
Don't play Marcy, guys. Just don't do it. It's so broken. Just stop. But come watch more Pro Dota tomorrow. We'll see you then.
The Marcy hate, man, it's real. Also, real quick, because we're just going to do it, shout out to Neff for no reason whatsoever. Just shout out Neff because, well, somebody laid the challenge down and we're going to do it. So Neff, wherever you are,
Real sponsor. The real sponsor of the tournament.
he is the man behind all of this. Just don't actually ask him about it because he's not allowed to say anything, okay? But shout out to Neff and shout out to all of you as well, as lame as that sounded. Nice transition, but we are going to be hopping on out of here. So we will be back tomorrow afternoon. Until then, enjoy the rest of your night, and thank you all for watching.